Check, check. Nobody yet. Hey, there's somebody. In from the... What does your screen name mean? Is it stand for something? Is it short for something? Let's see. Paul Adamek, Serenity Guitars, Joe Trey. What's up, everybody? I have enjoyed my break from YouTube for the last couple of weeks. So much so that I'm thinking about taking yet another week off from making videos. But after that, it's going to be time to start getting back to it, though. Guys, the screen name's years old. So, all right, I can forgive that. Rich Connor is here. And, okay, cool. What is going? No data, it says. Oh, whatever it is. Joe Trey says taking time away from things can really help to recharge the batteries. Yep, and that's pretty much exactly what I've been doing with it. Exactly. You know, I've been, I haven't been on vacation, because I've still, my full-time job, has, still been on my full-time, I've still been doing that like I always am, but, it's just, usually, what you guys don't know is I do so much of my recording and, all of my video creation because I'm fortunate enough to work from home. So, all my breaks and my lunch hours and stuff like that, I usually dedicate to, shooting content and, all that kind, recording and all that kind of stuff. So, this past week, I have, past couple weeks actually, I haven't been doing any of that on my, I've actually just been, like chilling and relaxing and, things that normal people do. So, JG Mopar's here. What's up, man? Serenity Guitars, great vid on the what if question vids. Thank you. Enough of you guys had asked me to put that together, so I did. And there you have it. So some people liked it, some people didn't. Have you purchased any new pedals lately? No, I have not. I have, I've spent a lot of money on a new computer, and I'm waiting on the reason why I'm not using that one is, just yet is because, well, number one, it took me forever to download and install all the plugins and all the software, and stuff that I need to go on it. But more importantly, I need a camera mount that I can clamp to my desk, kind of similar to what this microphone boom does. So, and I don't have that yet. And the other thing is, I want to get another camera, small camera, dedicated specifically for live streams. And my old Panasonic ZS40 died about a year ago, and the zoom quit on it, so it won't zoom in. You try to zoom it in or zoom it out or whatever it does, and it doesn't. Number one, it'll automatically start recording without hitting the record button, and the zoom doesn't work. So anyway, so I'm trying to find a new replacement. I don't want to spend a ton of money on it either, which is the other hard part. But but hopefully I will have that. And I also I haven't decided what I want to use yet either. So I may. If I can dig up my old Nikon camera, I might see if I can use that, just for the time being. But anyway, but the desk mount arm, I'm waiting on that to get here, which should be here hopefully in the next day or two, and I can finally get that thing up and running. So, pardon me. Yeah, it'll be nice though, because it's the desk back there's smaller, but I think the lighting's better, and it's just I'm surrounded by guitars back in that room, so it's a lot cooler. But yeah, no, because of that, plus I still owe a couple $300 on my GC credit card. I want to get that paid down before I do that. I don't need any more pedals, man. I don't need any more pedals. A couple of companies have sent me. Actually, I take it back. Nobody's really sent me anything for the last several weeks. One did show up from a company to demo this week, so that one I am going to demo. And I'm not going to say what it is because it's they're a newer company, I believe, and I don't anyway, I don't have the info up here in front of me, and I won't screw it up. So, and also I'm still kind of saving for a Les Paul. So, not kind of, I am saving to buy a Les Paul Custom. Let's see. JG Mopar, as always, has contributed to my PayPal account, which you can find the link to down in the description. And along with that, he tagged a note in there. It says a little more for the Les Paul Fund, or it helps Stevie T get his YouTube channel back. So, obviously, if you guys haven't heard yet, Stevie T's channel got hacked, and YouTube had to take it down temporarily while they eliminate the threat. According, was Stevie T's words on Instagram, and that's probably going to take some time. So it's unfortunate that happened. I really feel bad for the guy too, man. That's terrible, and it drives me. I've seen people on Facebook all morning long. So good, glad he got hacked. Dude, get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. If you don't like his content, fine. Nobody's forcing you to watch it, by the way. But to be rooting for somebody to have their entire livelihood hijacked right out from underneath them, that's bullshit. That's total bullshit. I can only imagine God, he spent years building up that audience, so, 2.5 million subscribers or something crazy. So if, I can only imagine what he must be feeling right now. That's gotta be heartbreaking. Let's see, where am I? Mikey Gabbard, I got my second vaccine yesterday, and boy, my arm's tired. I don't get mine I got my first one a couple of weeks ago, and about 4, 5, 6 hours after the shot, all of a sudden my arm got real sore, and I had a tough time sleeping on it that night, as a matter of fact. But by the next morning, when I got up, most of it was, the worst of it was over, and I felt fine within just a few hours. So fortunately, that passed. From what I understand, the second shot, and I'm getting the Pfizer vaccine. What I'm understanding, the second one is the one that really makes you feel like shit. So I go back for that. I go back, I think 2 weeks is when I go. Juan Andres VJ says, "Hi, I'm from Colombia. Have you tried the Egnator Tweaker? How does it sound?" Yeah, Egnator Tweaker is a great amp, man. It definitely earns its name, because it's got all these little mini toggle switches that turn this on and off, and boost that up and down and all kind. There's a lot of tonal possibilities with that amp. They are really cool. The factory, I don't know. I don't even know if they're still being made. I think they may have finally discontinued. Bruce Egnator has been a lot more involved with like the Synergy stuff here the last few years. So he hasn't really been focusing too much on his own amp line. But the factory, the built. I don't know what factory they were built in, but I have heard reports of. A lot of reports of reliability issues with that amp. The truth, I sold them when they first came out when I was at the store, and I sold a lot of them, and just about every single one that I saw that was returned usually had to do with user error. So I don't think that I don't. I guess what I'm saying is I don't buy into that reliability crap that you hear about those. So. Cool Guitar Gear. What's up, dude? Says, "Hey, Robert, so busy on Saturdays lately. I missed out on your past few shows. Hope things are going well." Things are going well. Listen, I did a live show last week. It was kind of a short one. You guys got quiet, and when you guys get quiet, I assume you don't have anything else that we need to talk about, so I killed it. The week before that, I had a lot going on, and I didn't get to do my live stream at all, unfortunately. But that is the way that it went. And that's kind of been my week last couple, my life last couple of weeks as far as live streams go. So, but back in the saddle. Paul Admick says, "Okay, Robert, you seem to have enough already." I'm assuming you're referring to pedals. I have plenty of. I've got almost 200 pedals. There's Zoe. I've got almost 200 pedals. The one thing I am not lacking in is pedals. So there are a couple things. I just saw this morning that TC Electronic is updating their what I've always called their smorgasbord series. So man, I haven't checked that out yet. Let me go to their website. I want to see. Andy from the Guitar Geek demoed the Magus Pro, and there it is right there on the front of their webpage. The Magus Pro, and then there's also a Sky Surfer Mini Reverb. So it looks like it's just those two for right now. But I'm wondering if that means that they're going to update the entire smorgasbord series. Because if it does, I guess these two are still pretty cheap as well. What did he say? The Magus, I think, was under $60. He said. So anyway, and it's basically a Rat clone. So Andy's video, it sounded pretty good. Sounded really good, actually. So I am interested. The Sky Surfer probably could have used some improvements. I don't know, man. Some people really liked it. I have that pedal, and it was not one of the. I was a little disappointed in it. I thought I was going to like that reverb better than I did. But anyway, so. What do you think of the new Dean Carey King V? It's a cool looking guitar, no question. I like Dean guitars, man. I think Dean make great guitars. I always have. I haven't played the new Carey King, of course, but I think it looks sharp. I think it looks sharp a little, definitely looks different from, from all of his BC Rich guitars. So, which is, not a bad thing. Kind of would have I think a lot of people would have raised a lot of eyebrows if they just took, his Junior V, his BC Rich Junior V design and just cloned it. So, and I'm sure Dean didn't want to do that anyway. Let's see. Rich Connor says the trolls of the world. I like Steve. I like Stevie T too. I've been critical of him in the past, and with all the stuff that he's got going on. Unfortunately, those videos, have gotten a lot of views here this week. Unfortunately, so I've gotten a few of his trolls, which is, of course, that's been the case for a couple of years now, but. Yeah, no, for the most part, I've always liked his content. I think he needs to, the Richard Benson thing. I thought he should have vetted out a little bit better than he did before he made that video. But he came back and apologized for it later, and so yeah. JG Mopar says, my mom's neighbor almost died from the first Moderna shot, anaphylaxis. I don't know what anaphylaxis is, but I'm glad, you say almost, so I'm going to assume that she came out okay, which I hope. Or neighbor, he, she, I guess I don't know if it's a he or she, but, yeah, they're, yeah, this, I'm all for getting vaccinated, but, what I understand is a pretty rough go, so. Hey Robert, this from JD Mopar says, hey Robert, what cab IR do you like in the 2 notes wall sound stuff? Ooh, I like the Mesa Boogie ones real well. And honestly, that most of my videos over like the last year and a half that that I've used a cab IR, that's the oversized vintage 30, the oversized 412 is probably the one that I've used the most. On that cab, or on that, on the plug-in anyway, it's just got a ton of mid-range, and I can't even remember what mic I have placed with it. Probably an MD421 or something, but yeah, probably that one. Sometimes I also like to use a couple of dual Marshall 1960 AV cabs. There's a greenback cab in there that's that I just discovered that I really kind of like. I was using that one with my my PV 6505 this week. Just record. I'm in the middle of just recording recording a track just for my own enjoyment for a change. So, and that's what I have been using on that. So, yeah. Start there. But, the 2-note stuff is great. There's loaded with. There's a bunch of them that I like. What do they call that? The burner cabs or something like that. There's a pair of 212 cabs that are that I use for for a couple of things I really like. And there is that's a single 12 Celestion K100 cab, and I can't remember what it's supposed to be emulating either, but. Or really even with what it's called, because I got it saved on a preset. But yeah, there's a ton of great cab sounds in that plug-in, man. I love 2 notes wall sound. Paul Adamek, what's a good harmonizer to purchase? Well, rule of thumb with harmonizers, the rule of thumb I've always gone by is if it doesn't say Eventide on it, you don't do it. Eventide make the best harmonizers in the industry, and they've expanded on them quite a bit over the years. I think it's the pitch factor, that's the 3-switch pedal. It's runs like $500. That's in the Eventide stuff anyway. That's probably going to be the most economical way to go. The H9 pedals have also been really, really, really popular. A lot of guys use those specifically for for the harmonizing. For the harmonizer effect on it. Let's see. And what's the TC Electronic, what's that, what they call theirs? The Quintessence, I think, is what that one's called. That one's supposed to be pretty good. That one, that's significantly cheaper. That one's like 160, 170 bucks or something. So that one's quite a bit less than the rest of them. So, especially than the Eventide stuff ain't cheap. But realistically, the best harmonizer that you can, that you can find is a second guitar player. Paul Adamack says, "Good Lord, 200 pedals. That's cool. Keep them all." It's getting to the point I'm running out of room to keep them all. I went and added a lot more shelving, to store more of them because I had collected so many of them. And now it's, to the point that, that all those shelves are just about full. And, I'm actually thinking about, it's getting to the point I'm actually thinking about, selling a lot of them now. So, like all those TC Electronics smorgasbord pedals, with the exception of a couple, I may dump. I don't know, man. I don't know. I haven't decided. I'm not selling any Boss pedals. So, none of my Boss pedals are going anywhere. None of my Digitech stuff is going to go anywhere. I don't know. I like them, most of them anyway. There's a few of them around here that I hate that I keep around just for a laugh, but Deity Paranormal at F Sharp says hello from Boston. What's up, man? How's the weather in Boston this week? It's been kind of hit or miss here in the Midwest, depending on what time of day, but that's life in the Midwest. Svenny Guitar says, "I took enough shots in the military. I'm good till I die, even anthrax proof." Poor Stevie, now he has to start over. I don't think he's gonna have to start over. From what he said on Instagram, and he started an Instagram account specifically just so he had a way to tell all of his viewers, or as many of them as possible, what the hell was going on. He had, what he said on Instagram was that YouTube has shut down his account temporarily so that they could eliminate the threat, i.e., clean out the virus and get rid of the hacker that's in there that's not supposed to be, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm quite sure YouTube being owned by Google, they've got, if there's anybody that has supercomputers on the planet that are capable of this, it's Google and YouTube. And I'm pretty sure probably what happened, what will happen is once they finally get all that straightened out and they get that, they get the hacker out of there, they've probably got all of his content on a backup server somewhere, if I had to guess. Some people don't seem to agree with me because the amount of backup servers, the amount of backup servers that YouTube would have to have for the entire platform would be astronomical, and that's true. But, if they are going to have that for anybody, it's likely going to be the great big channels. So, the channels over, say, 300,000 subscribers or something. I don't know. Whatever, or anybody with a gold play button. So the in short, obviously Stevie's channel having 2.5 million, they're probably going to be pretty motivated to get his channel back up and running. Because if for no other reason, his channel pulls in a shitload of ad revenue. Now, if my channel gets hacked, chances are, they're probably not going to put a lot of effort into it, to get it fixed. And if that happens, you guys likely will never see me again because I'm not doing it all again. I don't know if that's the case or not, but hopefully that doesn't happen. But my channel versus a great big one like Stevie T's, it's a different story. How much is the Eventide H9? It depends. I think there's 3 different versions of it now. I think there's a $399 version, let's look. As I choke on my Dr. Pepper. Eventide H9. There's 3 versions of it. There is, well, 4 if you include the black one. But there's the H9 Harmonizer, and I think that one's just the Harmonizer. No, I'm sorry, the H9 Core Harmonizer, which is $399. Then they have one just called the H9 Harmonizer that is $499, and the H9 Max, that's the one that does everything. That one's $699. And then there's a version of that one they call the H9 Dark, which is, near as I can tell, is the exact same thing as the H9 Max. It just comes in black housing instead of a white one. So, because they're both same price and everything. But yeah. So there you go. So depending on which version you get, between $400 and $700. DD Paranormal F Sharp says, rainy, my friend. Regarding my question about the weather in Boston. Anybody think Julian Edelman's going to sign with Tampa? It is not going to surprise me if he suddenly comes out of retirement and signs with Tampa. JD Mopar says the Eventides are pricey, but the one I was looking at was $699. So, yep, $699. But I tell you, I know a lot of people that have bought it, and man, they love that thing. So you don't see them pop up on the used market very often because people buy them and they hang on to them. So I haven't really messed with them much, to be honest with you, because they're a little too close to the the effects processor neighborhood for my taste. You guys know how I feel about effects processors. I don't love them. So, ooh. Let's see, Ian Nunez is here. What's up, dude? Local Indianapolis resident. Spooks Hill Joe says Rodgers needs to go to the Colts. They both could use a Super Bowl win. I don't think the Colts are going to want to pay that kind of money for a quarterback for 3, maybe 4 years, which is about what Rodgers probably has left. And also, we went through a lot of trouble to sign Carson Wentz in the offseason. So, we're gonna try the Carson Wentz experiment for a few years and see how that does. And honestly, I think Carson Wentz is going to do really, really well here. I think he's going to do really, really well. He and Frank Reich have a really, really strong rapport. So. So no, I don't think we're gonna see Aaron Rodgers with a horseshoe on his helmet anytime soon. Besides, it looks like sounds like he's got a sight set on Denver anyway. The guy knows they need a quarterback. Kobayashi says, Robert, what is the most common amp mod you've come across? Probably the Marshall One Wire mod. Real common on Plexis, and JMPs particularly, Plexis in particular. particularly like late 70s. You know, it's getting harder and harder to find a 70s JMP that has not been hacked up yet. You know, and it's you know, if you're not familiar with the one wire mod, you know, you know, and I'm not an amp technician. I've never performed it myself or anything, but you know, it's literally what it is. It's adding one wire from one, you know, one capacitor to a transistor or something on the inside of it, and it changes the sound. Made most famous by, you know, that's how Randy Rhoads had his Marshalls modified. You know, he played Plexis, you know, and that's, you know, so you know, some people refer to it as the Randy Rhoads mod. When Marshall did the extremely limited run of the Randy Rhoads Plexis that they did several years back, you know, and if you're not familiar with that amp, it's, you know, it's not surprising because those things they never come up on the used market. You never see them. You know, they were really, really expensive when they came out, and, you know, they sold like hotcakes. And a friend of mine has one, but that's the only one I've ever seen. And he searched high and low for years before he tracked it down. Anyway, but basically when they brought out that amp, that's basically what it was. It was it was an old Plexi with a one wire mod and you know, Randy Rhoads signature thing on it, white Tolex. But, you know, the most common amp mod I've seen, that's probably the one. Me personally, you know, old Marshalls is one thing, especially back in the late 70s, early 80s when everybody was doing it, because, you know, if you wanted more gain, that's how you had to get it. You know, overdrive pedals only got you so far, and, you know, they just didn't, you know, high gain amps didn't exist yet. So, you know, but nowadays, with all the options that are on the market, you know, at literally every single price point you could possibly imagine, I can't justify buying an amp just to modify it if it's, you know, if it doesn't sound the way that I want it to. My opinion. Joe Trey says Julian's knee shot. It's bone on bone. No way he's coming back. I did not know. If that is the case, then you're right. He's probably not going to sign with Tampa. Ben E says, hello, everyone. Didn't think this was happening today. Catch it on the replay. It generally happens about every Saturday. I admit I'm not real punctual at click and go live at 1 o'clock. But, you know, sometimes I get up and, you know, grab a beverage and, you know, let Zoe out in the backyard, which is her favorite place to go. And, yeah. So, you know, maybe make something to eat. So, and sometimes I just like to sleep in late on Saturdays. So, JG Mopar says, I like the sound of a JCM 800, a tube screamer in front. Pretty tough to beat a good old-fashioned JCM 800 with a tube screamer in front of it, you know, or, you know, really any overdrive pedal for that matter. But tube screamer, blues driver, OCD sound great, especially in a JCM 800. Although, you know, it's, you know, just a good old-fashioned Les Paul plugged straight into the front of a cranked up JCM 800 is a pretty tough tone to beat. That's one of my all-time favorite guitar tones. The problem is, you know, the reason why I don't have that is because it's insanely expensive, and even if I did have the money, you know, to just go drop on that kind of gear, they are ungodly loud. Username Kaka Pepe in the super chat says the Grateful Dead is overrated. That is all. Yeah, I actually agree with you. I'm not a Grateful Dead fan, but, you know, I mean, you can't deny the fact that Jerry Garcia was, Jerry Garcia was a genius. Bob Weir is still a genius, and those, those bands impacted, that band and everybody in it impacted a lot of people's lives across a lot of different generations. When I was in high school, the Dead were still touring every year, and I never went just because it was all the people that I knew that did go. It was a great big weed fest out in the parking lot beforehand, which I didn't have any interest in, and it's stoner music. I guess is why they all liked it. But I mean, God, they all flocked to go see Grateful Dead because the venue they played at, which is about a mile that way, by the way. The venue they played at, it was every time they came here, they played for 3 days. Yeah, they were here for 3 days. So, it was Dead Night 1, Dead Night 2, Dead Night 3, whatever it is. And, it was a huge tailgate and just a huge party out in the parking lot. And people would just go and hang out there for days. Some of the people that were out there were following them all over the country. Some of them were locals that were just there hanging out for a few days for the show. So, by the time I graduated high school, if I never saw another tie-dye t-shirt again, it would have been too soon. But I'm not going to deny the fact that a lot of people love that band. Joseph Austin, also in the Super Chat, says, the Dead are an acquired taste. I love them. Saw them live on the last tour. There you go. So, yeah, they're not... like I said, they're not for everybody, but no band is. There's plenty of people out there who are nowhere near as passionate about Metallica as I am. There are people out there who are nowhere near as passionate about Kiss as I am. But, that's okay. Janice Lala is here. Good afternoon, Janice. Joseph Austin says, Robert, what do you think of the Marshall DSL 20 for some home use? Thinking about grabbing either one of those or the 5-watt version. The new DSLs, I've said this over and over, the new DSLs sound great. Kick-ass sounding amps. Hats off to Marshall for that because they're, now they're an import. The DSLs are an import line, so you can buy, $600-700, $800 at the most. What's the head cost? If you buy the big 100-watt head, just out of curiosity. DSL 100 HR, $949 for the head. $949 for the 100-watt head, and the rest of them are down from there. So. Yeah, but anyway, regardless of which one you buy, they all sound great. If it were me, I would probably get the 40-watt, the DSL 40. Well, actually, you know what? I take that back. It depends on if you want a head or a cabinet, because the DSL 40, I think I just discovered recently the DSL 40 is the one that doesn't come in a head, which is stupid. Yeah, I think that's the one that only comes in combo form. The DSL 20 comes in both, right? And then the 5-watt also comes in both. I think I can't remember if there's a 1-watt version or not. Anyway, the DSL, if you want a combo, if it's the combo version that you're after, I would probably get the DSL 40 and, just run it on the half power switch, the half power mode. So you can run that one at 20 watts, I think, or maybe it might even be lower than that, actually. So, and the reason why is because the 40 just has, some more tonal options, and, just a little bit more flexibility than you would get on the 20. So, but 20 is also cheaper and smaller and quieter. Yeah, man, buy with, whichever one you decide to go with, buy with confidence. Kobe says, Robert, if you had a gig today with an indeterminate sized venue, Which amp would you take from the house? Oh boy. So assuming that what you're saying is, I've got a gig today, but I have no idea how big this venue is. And I won't know until I get there with all my gear getting ready to set up inside of it. What amp would I take with me that I currently own? I would probably grab. I would grab either my 6505 Plus combo. It's a 60-watt combo that's that seems to be relatively friendly at for a lot of different size venues. Plus it's also it's a 112 combo, although it is a beast. And there's something going, and I think one of the preamp tubes and the rhythm channel is blown or something because it doesn't sound right at the moment. Anyway, so I would probably take that one unless I needed something with a really good clean channel in it, because that amp does not have that. 6505 sucks for clean tones. So if I had to have something with a really really good clean channel on it, honestly, I'd take that back. Probably my JCM 900. Now that I think about it, my dual reverb, because it's again, that amp also has a half power switch on it. So if I need to run it at 50 watts for a smaller venue when I don't need to be that loud, I can do that and get away with it and not sacrifice anything. So. Of the amps that I own, that's probably what I would do. JD Mopar says, I'm not a Dead fan, but me it's Black Sabbath and Jimi Hendrix. Paul Adamek says it's Jimi Hendrix and Robin Trower. Hey, you guys check out this troll in the or I don't know, I guess I don't know if it's a troll or not that's here in the chat, but the screen name is Ice Wallow Come. Clearly trying to get me to say, the whole screen name out loud and get my live stream demonetized. Cocksucker. I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a second, see if you say anything else before I determine whether or not you're a troll or not. I bet you don't, though. James Duggar says, hey, what do you think of the Bugera amps? As long as you stay away from the first generation of them, basically the ones pre-Infinium series. The Infinium series Bugeras basically are the same thing as the old ones, except without all the problems. They figured out how to build them without them blowing up like they did. Those first series, that first run of Bugera amps, those things were notorious for blowing up on people. They were just had all kinds of problems. So, as long as you're not talking about one of those, actually, I think most of the Bugera stuff actually sounds pretty good. The problem that I do have with them is that there's, at the end of the day, there's still Behringer. And Behringer are not one of my favorite companies because, they, number one, now they're, I don't like the way they do business with their dealers, for one. I think that's, I think it's total horse shit. And, and I've, so many of their products have failed over the years, especially the Behringer line. They were real smart. Two of the smartest things they ever did was they bought out Midas and they bought out TC Electronic, because when they did that, they also inherited both of those companies' engineering. That was really, really smart on their part. And they carried over some of that engineering over to their own line, their own brand line. So, I mean, that was smart, and their QA did improve quite a bit because of it. But at the end of the day, they're still, I just, there's enough things about Behringer that I'm not a fan of that keep me away from even wanting to buy any of their amps. So. Ian Nunez says Stevie T's YouTube account was hacked. Wow. Yes, it was, unfortunately. It was. So, poor guy's been dealing with that, quite a bit here over the last couple of days. I'm sure that's all he's been dealing with over the last couple of days. I don't know him, but I've never talked to him, never met him or anything, but I'm sure that's pretty much everything he's been dealing with. So, oh, yep. We were talking about that earlier anyway, so, it's poor guy. I feel real bad for him. I mean, that's his entire livelihood. I don't know if you guys saw that video that he posted a couple of months ago, that brand new huge house that he bought. I mean, his YouTube career paid for that. And it was one of the nicest, most beautiful houses. It's up, in Canada, I'm sure, somewhere way out in the middle. There was not a thing around. So I know he likes to live out in the middle of nowhere anyway. But yeah, poor guy. It ain't cool. That ain't cool. I really, really do hope. If you don't like his content, fine, don't watch it. But I really, really do hope that YouTube get that straightened out for him. In fact, it's bullshit if they don't. Stay curious, as my blacktop Telecaster always feels like it has high action, even though the frets are buzzing with the saddles lowered. Any ideas how I can improve the action and replace the bridge? Honestly, sounds like you need to tighten the truss rod, to be honest. Tighten the truss rod, and you might even you might also try shaving off the bottom of the nut just a little bit. A little bit actually will go a long way. But to me, it sounds like, especially on a telly, it sounds like the truss rod needs to be tightened up a little bit. If the neck's already straight and you tighten up any more, then it's going to start buzzing. That I don't know. That that time, at that point, it's probably time to invoke your favorite Fender, your favorite certified Fender guitar technician who knows their way around how to get that straightened out. But so if and the other thing, Kobe also just mentioned another thing about if the truss rod doesn't need to be adjusted, then the last step there would probably be to shim the neck. And what that does is basically it sticks a piece of something in the neck pocket, so that when you bolt the neck back on, it cocks the neck slightly to basically back the direction that you need it to be in. Chris Torres says, "What's the shittiest guitar you've ever played?" Ooh. Shittiest guitar I've ever played. There's been a couple of 70s Gibsons that I've gotten my hands on that were total garbage. Which was not uncommon for them back in that era. Let's see. That stupid first act Volkswagen guitar, that thing's got a real strong cult following. People that own those things love those things for some reason. But every one that I played just felt like cheap toys, felt like complete crap, and didn't play any better, and didn't sound any better. I thought those were, those may as well have been made of plastic. Let's see. Yeah, those are, that's a couple of them that come to mind anyway. And just about anything Alvarez. Alvarez acoustics. I have found one Alvarez Acoustic, and I've lost track of how many hundreds of Alvarez Acoustics I've had my hands on over the years. And every single one of them, with the exception of one, either played like shit, sounded like shit, or both. But to be fair, the one that did not, the one that played great and sounded great, I've been kicking myself for ever since for not buying the damn thing. That was a great guitar. But that's the only one of those I've ever seen. That's another brand that's just got a strong cult following out there. People love Alvarez Acoustics, but I hate them. They're not for me. Stay Curious says, I did adjust the truss rod once, but I haven't done it in a long time. Thank you. That's probably what it needs. Probably just needs truss rod tightened because, especially, this time of year, we're just coming out of, of one of the 2 times a year, going into the colder months and coming out of the colder months, at least here in the Midwest. That's when all the necks on all my guitars like to move, and it annoys the shit out of me because, some of, like my Majesty, that I've got to set that thing back up every single time the weather changes. But I'll bet you, especially if you haven't adjusted the truss rod in a long time, I'll bet you that's probably all it needs. Fred Merrill says, got a Bugera 1960 British bite head and a 212 cab, decent Marshall clone. Good pedal platform, no gain. Very loud, bit heavy. It's okay. I prefer my Marshall Black Star Jet City rigs. 1960, I think, is that their Plexi clone, I think? Bugera's, they got a bunch of Plexi clones. The 1990, I know, was the JCM 900. Yeah, that one I did not like. The one of those that I heard sounded like dog shit. Granted, it was also what I heard it through was their speakers too. But hey, it's that's their amp. If they want to sound better, should have put better speakers in their freaking cabs. But I think they've also got a JCM 800 clone in there, and I can't remember what that one's called. Paul Adamek says, Robert, what kind of mics do you use for miking your amp? I use what I have used in the past, and this may change because I need another one of these interfaces for the new recording rig, because the one that I have set up back there right now is a 2i2, which is fine, but it is way too small for what I need to do with it, and it's for everything that I need to run into it, it's just a huge pain in the ass, to be honest with you. Constantly switching mics in and out. Anyway, what I have liked to do in the past, that I've always gotten, some of the best results with, is a Sennheiser E906, on one speaker and a Shure SM57 on the other speaker, or another speaker, and then of course blend to taste. That's probably been my favorite combination. The other mics I've gotten really pretty good results out of. The Blue Microphones Encore 100i, which is their, I think theirs is $89 instrument mic. So it's $10 cheaper than the 57. Great, that one actually sounds really, really good. And the E609 is pretty good too, though. If you hear the E906, I don't know. I like them both, But the the Sennheiser E906 is definitely a better mic over the E609. Let's see, what else have I used? Audix i5 is kind of a smoother sounding SM57, and the What's the other one I'm thinking of? Actually, believe it or not, I think the MXL, the MXL 990 XL. The MXL 990 XL. It's an MXL 990, which there's a gazillion of those out there. It's a production model, $100 production model condenser microphone. But at one time they made an XL version, which is the same thing, it's just a little bit bigger. And that thing actually sounds really good on guitar cabs. So those are probably the ones I've used the most and had the best luck with. Justin Austin says, man, some people swear by Alvarez. I've never owned one, but the Yaris get a lot of praise. Well, the Yaris do, but, those are, the Yaris are the Alvarez high-end line, and those are, those are all made in Japan. Yeah, and those are you're right, a lot of people do like those guitars. The one guitar that I mentioned, that, the one Alvarez that I did, that I did really like, was a Yari. It was a Yari. It was a jumbo, is what it was. Big old maple body jumbo acoustic. I couldn't tell you the model number to save my life, but that one was a Yari. But it's like some of the older Yaris I played, some the ones from the 70s and 80s and stuff. They don't seem to hold up real well. High action, bridges coming up. Either that or every single one that I've played has not been cared for properly. Fred Merrill says my worst playing Gibson was a 72 SG1, single cheap mini humbucker, thick neck, worst top carve I've ever seen. No bevels, gigantic block heel joint, just underwhelming. I've played some 70s SGs where the neck wasn't even set in straight. I've played some bad 70s SGs, 70s Gibsons, period. It's only been in like the last 10 years that they even finally started acknowledging, anything that they put out in the 70s, because, they were, for the longest time, Gibson didn't do any 70s reissues. They didn't do anything that even remotely acknowledged anything they put out in the 70s. Then they started coming out with the 70s tributes, and they did a couple of, Guitar of the Week. There were 70s reissues, like they did, they did an RD reissue from that era, but yeah, no thanks. JD Mopar says, I like Breedlove acoustics. I don't own one, but I've played a bunch. Breedloves are great, man. I agree. I like Breedlove acoustics quite a bit. I don't like them as well as I like Taylor's, but I do really like Breedloves. But I do still really like them. Taylor's are probably my favorite acoustic, as far as playability. I think it's really, really tough to beat the playability of a Taylor. But, I've also got a soft spot for Martins because, my dad had a D18 in the house when I was growing up, a 1952 D18. So I've always had a soft spot for Martins as well. Gibson acoustics, of course, have also been pretty legendary over the years. The thing with Gibsons, though, for some reason, man, is especially the really old ones, 40s, 50s, especially in the 60s, man, guys beat those things to death. So it's hard to find one from that era that's, that hasn't just had the unholy shit beaten out of it at this point. Chris Torres says, thoughts on the Metal Muff? You must be new here. I hate that pedal. Feel free to search my channel for the, for the Metal Muff. I've caught a lot of heat from Metal Muff fanboys that love that pedal because I've made fun of it. I think it's complete garbage. I love Electro Harmonics, but the Metal Muff, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. I think sounds like shit. Let's see. JG Mopar says I can get a good 80s tone with my Bugera 1960 Infinium. Like I said, man, most of the Infinium series that I've heard actually sound really good. Particularly like the more modern, the more modern ones that are, by modern I mean modern tone. So. Chris Torres says, I mean the one with the built-in noise gate. We're talking about the Metal Muff. Talking about the new version of the Metal Muff that just came out with the noise gate in it. I've heard a demo or two on that, and to me it still sounds like with a noise gate, and it still sounds like the same old shitty Metal Muff distortion circuit that they put in the other one. So. JG Mopar said when my father passed away, someone stole his Martin D28. We know who it is, but don't have the proof to get the police involved yet. That sucks, man. I hate hearing about people getting their gear stolen. My dad unfortunately sold his. We've been living in Indiana for about, I don't know, a couple years at that point. I'll never forget. I got up on a Saturday morning one day, went downstairs. We had a basement in our house, and that guitar was stored in the case. I do still have the case because my grandfather built that. I do still have the case, but I went downstairs to go pull that guitar out of the closet, pulled the case out. This case is big and heavy, by the way, so it's kind of hard to tell whether or not it's got a guitar in it when you pick it up. So I pulled it out of the closet, opened it up, and all of a sudden, no Martin. What the hell's going on? So I went and ran upstairs trying to find Dad, figure where the hell's the Martin, where's the guitar, and Dad was gone. Comes home a few hours later, says he had taken it down to the local guitar show and sold it. Not only did he sell it, but this was it was a 52 D18. He sold it, and this was like 92, so it would have been 40 years old. I bet you that guitar is probably worth $3 or $4 grand easy at that point. Sold it for $800. And didn't tell me about it until afterwards. I've never gotten over that. That guitar is probably worth $8 grand by now, if not more. Ian Nunez says sex, drugs, and rock and roll was a big part of the 70s, probably why Gibson guitars were terrible. Actually, the reason why Gibson guitars were terrible in the 70s is because in 1968 they had been bought out by a company, by the Norland Corporation. And, Norland were not musicians. They did not know anything about the guitar industry, about the music industry. None, they were, they were, I think they were a building materials company or something like that. They was about as far removed from, about as far removed from the guitar business that you could possibly get. So they had no, it was an investment to them, is what it was. They bought it thinking, they'd cut some costs and flip it, down the road and make some money. And I don't know how much money they made on it when they flipped it, but they were cutting, they cut costs in all the wrong places, and the quality went to complete dog shit. And that is the reason why. Not everything they produced in the 70s is garbage. I don't want to talk like it is. Like the Artisan Les Pauls, those things are great if you can find them, and they're worth a lot of money. Les Paul Customs are climbing in value. Particularly the Silverburst ones, are climbing in value quite a bit right now. So I thank Adam Jones for that. But not everything they put out was terrible. But then you had that stuff, and then you also had the Firebrand stuff, and you had SGs with set necks that were not set in straight, and all kinds of other stuff. Kobe also says, I have an Epiphone EJ200E, and every Taylor owner I know tells me it sounds better. Mine is the exception, though. Epiphones can be a little hit or miss, man. So, Epiphone, with the exception of the master builds, really, I'm not a big fan of Epiphone acoustics. Most of them, some of them are okay, but most of them I don't. I think however it is they make their laminate on the back that they use on the back and sides of most of those guitars, it just doesn't. Something about it just makes it sound dead to me. Fred Merrill says, Robert, the Tube Screamer comparison video was excellent. It got me jonesing for a Tube Screamer. Now I have a TS5 sound tank coming to me in the mail. Thanks for the great content. Cheers. You are welcome, sir. I just picked up a TS5 here a couple weeks ago myself. Couldn't find one at the time that I was making that video, and then right after I made it, that video went up. 3 of them popped up. So I grabbed one. Chris Torres says, thoughts on ESP LTD guitars? You must own an ESP LTD guitar, I'm guessing. Fred Merrill says Norland was Ecuadorian brewery, I think, among other ventures. Yeah, I mean they had their hand. I think if memory serves, they had their hands in quite a bit of stuff. But I think their biggest business, I believe, was building materials. They sold concrete blocks and stuff like that. So. Ian Nunez says, I told the guy about jail time, and better bring back your dad's guitar. I was talking about J.G. Mopar's stolen guitar that he mentioned above. Joseph Austin says ESP LTD guitars have always been good. I would get a used one though. They don't hold their value. They don't hold their value, and I think for the most part, the quality on LTDs has been okay. There was a stretch there that for back in the '90s when when ESP first came out with the LTD line, they sucked. They were terrible. They figured out those problems and, were producing pretty good guitars all the way through the 2000s. I want to say it was like in the early 2010s, if memory serves, that, their quality kind of, took a bit of a dive. It was a little hit or miss there for a while. With the exception of like the EC1000s, that price range, which at that time was about $800 and up. Seemed to be okay, but anything below that, was, kind of hit or miss. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I like them okay. I just, I don't like them well enough that I would rather, that I'd buy one of those instead of just holding out for for an ESP. So, it's like even the E2s, are made in Japan, and you can get those for. Really a lot of some of them are just a few $100s more than the highest end LTDs, so they're not that far apart. But Fred Merrill said, I do like some weird New Orleans stuff. I admit I cherish my crusty old 81 Sonex Road Warrior that was $200. Looks like it was rusting on the ocean floor. The Sonex guitars, the Firebrands, I don't know. I mean, those are not the Firebrands. what do they call that series that was like, it was like thinner versions. They had the Paul, and they had the I think they called it, they just called it like the V or something like that. It was like, they were clearly cheaper, more inexpensive versions of, Les Pauls and, their core models. Whatever it was they called that line. I could have done without those two. Guild acoustics are great. Lots of rock guys using them, including GNR. Guilds are great, man. That company's got a lot of interesting history behind it too. They've had to move their factory like 6 times. So the ones in the ones made in the old Waverly factory, I think, are the most valuable. But those seem to be the ones that the most people want. But they were originally started in New York, and they had to get out of New York because that was back in the basically they had mafias, the organized crime families in New York that were banging on the door, demanding protection money out of them. So they packed up and moved out of New York in the middle of the night. Now they're owned by Cordoba. Well, they're bought out by Fender there for a while, and Fender, basically the only reason they bought them was so they could pull all the Guild guitars off the shelves in stores and replace them with Fender guitars, and then eventually Fender sold them to Cordoba. Cordoba now owns them and revived the line altogether. They're even making high-end USA stuffs, USA guitars again. So when it comes to 12-string acoustics, Guilds are pretty tough to beat. I'm hoping they come out with they bring their electric guitar line back out at some point. Paul Adamek says, thanks again, Robert, for answering all the questions we all ask. I try not to miss a single episode. The best thing is that you're so down to earth kind of musician. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I don't know how down to earth I am, but I've certainly got my asshole streak. I don't like bullshit, and and I pissed a lot of people off, and they call people out. I wonder if if my channel and my audience would not be bigger than it is if I had just kept my mouth shut at certain points. So both in videos and in the comments sections of et cetera, those videos, et cetera. So I don't know. There are a lot of people out there that hate me. Thoughts on Kirk Hammett? I'm a diehard Metallica fan, man. I love Kirk Hammett. I don't know why he gets all the hate that he does. I really don't. He's an excellent guitar player. You got to be doing something right if you've been the lead guitar player for the most popular metal band in history for 4 decades now. I think Kirk Hammett's doing something right. Anybody that's giving Kirk Hammett any guff about anything is clearly jealous. Sniffmatip says, what's the score with the Marshall DSL 20 head? Any good for pedals? We just talked about that about, 20, 30 minutes ago or so, something like that. Yeah, man, all the DSL heads, all the current DSL heads sound great. Buy with confidence. Joe Trey in the super chat. Sorry, I saw the alert come in and I forgot all about it. My apologies. Says, looking to replace some broken pots and switches and a couple of my Asian-made guitars, Ibanez, PRS, SE, etc. Any recommendations or brands to avoid? Honestly, I would stick with the Switchcraft or the CTS stuff and Mojo Tone. One of those brands. I mean, I wouldn't mess with any. Don't try to save. I mean, even with those brands, I mean, potentiometers are what, 10, 12, $15. Don't cheap out. Don't try to save a few bucks by buying something, some cheap Chinese thing. Don't do that. Stick with the brand names. Guild Electrics are back for now, but they're all overseas production. I did not know. That's good news. Wonder if there. I'll be darned. There is. They got a Bluesbird out now. $949. There's a Bluesbird. There's a Jetstar. X175B. Hollow body. A couple of semi-hollows. Nice. There's a T-Bird. Now they're calling it the T-Bird instead of the Thunderbird, but still. $849. Oh, shit. I didn't know those were out. What else do they got? Guild guitars. I'm interested in the solid body stuff. Electric guitars. Hey, give me a second. I'm going to filter the search here. Electric guitars. New. And that'll give me what I need. T-Bird, no X series, or at least not like the. Yeah, they got a couple different T-Birds. They got one with humbuckers, one with P90s. Those humbuckers, mini humbuckers. What the hell are those? Yeah, those are humbuckers. No X88 though. Boo. Oh well. Cool, that's good to know. I'm checking into that. Hey, Scott Manning's here. What's up, dude? Scott Manning's a longtime friend of mine, and you guys ought to go check out his channel if you haven't yet. He's just getting it started here in the last few months, but he trust me. Go check out Scott's channel. He's a lot of he's shared a lot of great information, and he is a great guitar player. We can all learn a lot from guys like Scott. So go check out Scott's channel. Nope, your channel is doing how it does because you say what you mean. If you just played nice, I think you would lose viewers. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I see a lot of other channels that are doing, that are a lot bigger than mine that just, seem to keep their mouth shut about things that I just can't help myself and can't keep my mouth shut about. There's a few things out there, full disclosure. There's a few things out there in the YouTube world that have gone on here in the last year or so that it's taken every fiber of my being to keep my mouth shut about. And mostly the primary reason why is because the individuals involved, I do not want to give them any freaking oxygen. So, not because I don't want to share my opinion on those things, because I do. I just don't want to contribute to, people benefiting off of my opinion that shouldn't be benefiting off of it. Let's see. I love my, Ian Nunez says, I love my Cordoba Fusion classical guitar. Cordoba make great guitars, man. They're one of the oldest. If you go back to their history, all the way back over to Spain, I believe. They've been, they're one of the oldest guitar builders in the world, actually, I believe. I don't think their history goes back as far as Martin's, but they do have a long history. Fred Merrill says, got a lesser-known Guild, a Burnside Blade Super Strat. I've never heard of that. Fun guitar for 80s metal, very well built, set neck, carved top caler. The neck feels like a Charvel. Was only $47 at a local shop. Wow. Oh man, I need to start frequenting, guitar shops and pawn shops again. I never stumble across deals like that anymore. JG Mopar says Kirk Hammett's style is perfect for the music they play. I could imagine a different lead guitar player in Metallica. It would be so wrong without Kirk. I agree. One thing I love about Metallica. I mean, you can just tell all four of those guys, even Rob Trujillo. All four of those guys are really, really tight knit. When you see them perform, they don't even. I mean, you would never know that Kirk Hammett replaced Dave Mustaine. You just would never know. So, I mean, it's say what you want about. I saw somebody pissing and moaning the other day about how Dave Mustaine was unceremoniously kicked out of Metallica. All the bullshit. Well, at the time it was the right thing to do because while they were all young and stupid, partying hard and everything. Mustaine's drinking was at a whole different level and was, a detriment to the band and their goals. That's why they got rid of him. But as it turned out, it worked out well for everybody because without it, then we never would have had Megadeth. And more importantly than that, we never would have had Kirk and Metallica. And I agree. If Kirk Hammett were not the lead guitar player of Metallica, I don't think they would have had the amount of success that they did. So, let's see. Chris Torres says, Dimebag Darrell or Zakk Wilde? I love both of them, but Zakk Wilde for me all day long. I've always been a huge Zakk Wilde fan. I love Zakk. I love Dimebag too, but for me, Zakk Wilde all day. Joseph Austin and Fred Merrill says that's a great deal on a sweet guitar. I think the 80s look just doesn't sell well now. I've picked up some Charvels for cheap for the same reason. I don't know about that, man. I think the 80s, style guitars are on a strong comeback. People are starting to realize now, those old 80s Charvels were made in Japan and, the old Fender, the old Japanese made Fenders and, all the stuff from that era, particularly the Japanese stuff, that was, and back then you got to think, I mean, that was all, it wasn't entry level, but, it was the equivalent to a lot of Chinese and Korean stuff that's made today, but it was way, way better. They were built way better than, what are the, I've got a Charvel Model 5. What did that guitar cost brand new? $500 probably, $600 maybe. Back in '87 when it was made. That same guitar cost you $2,000 now, easy. They don't sell for that much on the used market, but to buy something brand new today, I also look at the Kramer, the Kramer stuff. I've got an '84 Kramer Focus that that was made to be a student model guitar when it came out. But on a student model guitar, back then you got a Brazilian Rosewood fretboard and an original Floyd Rose, and what are by today's standards a pretty good set of electronics and hardware. Now, they just re-released the Kramers as, some of them are reissues, and I don't know what the Focuses are going for, but if memory serves, I want to say most of them are probably in the $500-600 range. So, and now I think they're made in China. Yeah, now people are now very, very aware of 80s guitars, regardless of what style it is, but John McDonough's here. Says hello from London. Hello, John. Hello from Indiana. Paul Fuchs is here. Says, hi, Robert. Why hasn't Rosewood made a full comeback? Well, it takes time, man. It takes time. It's, I think the CITES treaty was, hasn't been all that long since they finally said that, guitar companies can start using Rosewood again. There's only so much of it in the world. I mean, there's laws, environmental laws that got to be followed when when you go taking chainsaws to those trees. So, you can't just, you can't just start, chopping shit down and build guitars with it. I mean, there's regulations and stuff, global regulations that need to be followed. So, you'll start seeing it trickling back in, Fenders, like a lot of I don't know, a lot of the, cost has a lot to do with it. As Rosewood's been such a commodity for the last 10 years or so. So now Fender, for example, has discovered they could build the same import guitars with Palfero fretboards, with other than the description that you see on the websites, pretty tough to tell the difference, and Fender also has the added benefit that, Stevie Ray Vaughan's Strat, number one was a Palfero fretboard instead of Rosewood. So they do have that going for them, but, but even if they didn't, Palfero is a pretty good substitution for Rosewood, and if it's cheaper for them, maybe they won't start, building their player series with Rosewood. Maybe they'll leave it Palfero. I don't know. Pardon me, guys. Fred Merrill said, I feel like wah pedals are not too heavy in music and are not too welcome in heavy music, and Kirk got caught up in it. I don't agree with that either. There's been a ton of rock and metal guitar players that have all loved their wah pedals. God, honestly, I think Slash is worse than Slash's love for his wah pedal is worse than than Kirk Hammett's has ever been. So, yes, we all know Kirk loves his wah pedal, but so what? So do a lot of other people. Scott Manick says, not a big fan of his vibrato, but overall I grew up on and love Kirk Hammett. Yeah, that's kind of how I am. Even his vibrato never really bothered me much, but, I'm not, it's probably never bothered me much because I'm not exactly the most technical guitar player on the planet either. Really, really technical players probably cringe at my picking style and the way that I do a lot of things. So I've devised a number of shortcuts for some things too, like pinch harmonics, that I do differently from a lot of other people, just because I found it's easier for me. A couple guys says, Robert, we can appreciate why you will not suffer fools. I describe you as blunt but seldom mistaken. Well, at least I got that going for me. Blunt but seldom mistaken. That's kind of... I definitely do put a lot of effort into trying to be clear. I don't always do that, but... I don't always succeed, that is, but... let's see. Joe Trace is my main guitar for the last 25 years. Is a 75 Guild S100. Bought it with the original hard shell case in '94 for $300. I'm seeing them sell for $2,000 now. Great guitar, great investment. Yes, yeah, those are killer, man. Kim Thale from Soundgarden. I mean, that was his main axe. I think still is. Which if you don't know what the Guild S100 is, I believe that was their SG model. I guess I better look to make sure I'm talking about the right one. But, Guild S100. Yeah, that was the SG. That was the SG model that they did. I bought a LT DGL 200 MT last month, and it's pretty good for the money. Fit and finish are good. He's talking about the LTD George Lynch. That's the MT. I don't. I want to say that was the black and yellow tiger stripe one, but I can't recall. Those are a pretty good bang for the buck. I think Max demoed that guitar on his channel a year or so ago. What's your opinion on Korea and Ibanez guitars? I have an 05 RG made by Cort, and I upgraded all the hardware to Godo and put a tusk nut in it and super distortion on the bridge, PF Pro in the neck, etc., etc. Yeah, I mean, Korea-made Ibanezes are, fine instruments. There's certainly nothing wrong with them. I mean, most instruments, I think, most Korean-made instruments are fine instruments. I don't know if they're ever going to be worth a ton of money on the used market or vintage market, but just because vintage collectors are so they're always turning their nose up on anything that's not made in USA, Japan, or some places in Europe. Anything else, they kind of turn their noses up just based on where it's made. So, I don't know if they're ever going to have a lot of collectability, collector's value to them. But as far as the guitars themselves, are great. I've played and sold many of them. Mark White is here. Says, I have a Fender Mustang 5 with the 412 cab. I know it's an old amp, but have you played one? Have you ever played on one? What are your thoughts on it? And the sound of the cat. Thanks. I mean, they were. If you're on a budget, I guess they were okay. But I'm honestly, I'm the wrong guy to ask. If you're not familiar with me or my channel, I mean, modeling amps are not my thing. I don't care for them. There are, too many buttons and switches and knobs. I spend more time trying to figure out how to dial the damn thing in than I do playing through it. So, they're not for me. They're not for me. But I know a lot of people that, have owned them and really, really like them. So, matter of fact, Guitar Max does most of his, I think does most of his videos through a Fender Mustang. Paul Fuchs says, yeah, Fender seems all in on Palfero. Who could blame them? I mean, it took them this long to find a suitable replacement for Rosewood, when they couldn't, when Rosewood got scarce. So, yeah, couldn't blame them. Like I said, their Fender was fortunate that they had the, that Palfero has the Stevie Ray Vaughan provenance out there, because I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan is one of the most popular guitar players to ever walk this planet. There is, if you put up a poll of greatest guitar player ever, Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan are both going to show up in probably the top 3 of just about anyone. Of any one of those surveys. I've tested that experience and that experiment, and both of those names did indeed show up in the top 3. Often in most cases number 1 or number 2. So Stevie Ray Vaughan has influenced a lot of guitar players, a lot, Fender customers in particular, Fender players in particular. So, if those people all think, if Palfero was good enough for Stevie Ray Vaughan, it ought to be good enough for me. So, like I said, based on that, if Palfero turns out is going to be cheaper for him in the long run, we might not see him switch it back to Rosewood anytime soon. Fred Merrill, the 80s to be a teen guitarist. Starting out again, all the colors, BC Rich, Kramer, Robin, Jackson Charvel, ESP. Couldn't afford them then. It was Honda Aria Pro II, crates, and Gorilla amps. Hey, nothing wrong with Aria Pro II at all. They made great guitars. I've had this guitar for over, for 30 years now. And it's never given me one single problem. I still I still use it. Still use it. It's not my main guitar anymore, but for a long time it was. I love Aria Pro II. The Korean ones or the Japanese one. Wah pedal or talk box? I mean, wah pedal is definitely more convenient, but talk boxes are fun, man. Talk boxes are a lot of fun. I've got, matter of fact, I have a talk box thing that I keep meaning to demo for you guys, and I just haven't done it because it's, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's, it's a video that's going to take a little longer than usual to produce because there's a lot of setup involved, so that's the reason why I haven't done it yet, but... let's see. Too many guitars got pushed because of marketing. I love BC Rich and a lot of others. You guys know I'm a diehard BC Rich fan. God, I own, 8 of them or something? I own a lot of BC Rich guitars. I haven't bought one in a while, but I own a lot of BC Rich guitars. I love BC Rich. Joseph Austin said, man, I really prefer ebony to rosewood, and I can feel the difference between rosewood and Palfaro. I can see a difference in Palfaro and rosewood. Yeah, I didn't say it was identical to rosewood. It's not, but I said it's a good substitution for it. I prefer, I prefer ebony over rosewood as far as fretboards anyway. I agree. If I had my choice, it'd always be ebony, but realistically, ebony's even more expensive than rosewood, so that's why you don't find it. You only find it on more expensive guitars. So agree with you about Slash. I guess I was thinking more of the thrash metal purists that might not like wah pedals. Well, I mean, I guess, if you're thinking about the thrash metal bands, then yeah, Kirk Hammett's kind of unique in that respect, because, Kerry King and, Jeff Hanneman didn't really use wah pedals. Mustaine or any of his other guitar players in Megadeth never really used wah pedals. I think Dan Spitz did. Or maybe even Scott Ian, in Anthrax. I think they would break out a wah pedal every now and again, but yeah, like I said, as far as the thrash metal stuff, at least from that era, you may have a point, but there's been a lot of other people that have since been inspired by Metallica that have used a lot of wah in their solos ever since then. So. Hell, Zakk Wilde's been noted, uses a lot of wah. Zakk Wilde uses his wah pedal quite a bit. Jerry Cantrell uses his wah pedal quite a bit. Dimebag used his wah pedal quite a bit. That's Pantera, a thrash band. Scott Manick says, Robert, have you tried bias effects? I have not. As far as if you're talking about the plug-in, I assume you are. I don't really. I don't know. When it comes to using plug-ins, I guess I have Amplitude 4, and I think they actually. I don't know. The Amplitude 5 suddenly showed up on my in my IK download manager thing. So, I just downloaded that on my new computer. I haven't tried it yet. And I don't know how much of if it's just a smaller version or the whole thing, to be honest. But regardless, I've had Amplitude for a while, and it's worked. It's done just fine for me. So, and I don't use virtual amps very much anyway, so I kind of prefer the real thing. Even most of what I record out here on this is going through that Laney, so I don't use a cab out here. It goes direct, and then I use a virtual cab on the back end. I use an IR, but as far as amps themselves, I prefer I kind of prefer the real deal. Bass amps, different story though. Actually, I do use virtual amps. The Amplitude has a bass preset, and they're for a Gallion Kruger amp that I really like. Sean Lane is the GOAT, says Infamous. I never even heard of him until like a year ago. E. Nunez says, I'm not in the fancy guitar processor amp sims either. Rather have pedals. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it, man. I know what works for me. Hey, Parkinger is here. Kicking in a little bit towards the Les Paul fund. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Fred Barrels is glad to see Pal Farrell getting a better reception than Rich Light. Is Rich Light still being used on any new guitars? Man, you want to know why Rich Light got such a bad reception is because, again, because Society's treaty, when, Ebony wasn't available, as readily available as it once was, Gibson started using Rich Light on, for the fretboards on their Les Paul Customs. When that happened, everybody lost their freaking minds. Oh my God, Gibson's not using Ebony anymore. He can use Rich Light on the fretboards. They suck. Well, despite the fact they've since gone back to using Ebony, because they, again, became available again, and they had to do something to stop the bitching. Through all of that, nobody seems to have remembered that Martin has been using Rich Light in their guitars, on various different guitars for years, and nobody bitched once. They only bitched because Gibson did it. So, I don't always defend Gibson, but I do defend him on that. That's bullshit. But to answer your question, is Rich Light still being used on any new guitars? Yes, Martin still uses it a fair amount on their lower end models, as they always have, and they're the only ones that I know of. I don't know if anybody else is using it at the moment, but nothing wrong with Rich Light. I mean, I never had any issues with it. Let's see. John Taylor is here. What's up, dude? Hail Mary Recordings has popped in for a few. What's up, man? Mikey Newman says, my Rich Light 2017 Custom is an absolutely great guitar. See? There you go. Right there. 2017 Custom. I'm assuming he's talking about a Les Paul Custom or something. But Rich Light fretboard, great guitar. One advantage Rich Light does have is it doesn't shrink or expand due to weather conditions, or humidity conditions. I don't think so, being that it's a synthetic material. Wood does not have that. Is not able to make that claim. So yeah, I admit, when I'm finally able to buy my Les Paul Custom that I'm chasing this year. When that happens, I will, I'm definitely want one, and Gibson's making them with Ebony again, so, I'm going to buy a new one, but it's, I want one with an Ebony fretboard, but, if truth is somebody handed me a custom with a Rich Light fretboard, I wouldn't complain. You can't sit down and tell me, sit down and play the damn things back to back and tell me you can notice any huge difference. Some Gibson owners are very snobbish towards a lot of Gibson models if they aren't what they would call quote unquote period. There's Gibson owners are well, I don't know, man. I think guitar players in general. Everybody turns their nose up about Gibson one way or another. You know, you got the people that hate them, that swear that they haven't, you know, Gibson hasn't built a good guitar since the '60s, which I think is ridiculous. You know, then you got the people that, you know, that swear by everything that they're putting out, you know, and say that Gibson can't build a bad guitar because, you know, you can't, you know, like with the Tribute series that are $800,000, you know, you can't buy another American-made guitar for that kind of price range, you know, but you know, there's plenty of arguments to be made on both sides of that, but Joe Trey says, Ebony's definitely my favorite fretboard wood. I picked up a Wolf Les Paul, recommended by Guitar Max a couple of years ago before they switched to Rosewood. It was only about $400 brand new. Yeah, I mean, you know, you can certainly find, you know, affordable guitars that, you know, are using good quality materials. They're certainly out there. Plenty of affordable guitars are, you know, that have ebony fretboards on them. Man, sorry, I don't know why my nose is itching so damn bad. John Taylor says the Takamine electric I just got is an Aria Pro, almost exactly with a longer headstock. Plays perfectly now that it's had a setup. The intonation was never even set. The intonation can make all the difference in the world, man. I still, you know, matter of fact, I've still got that Dean Cadillac that I need to set the intonation on, just, you know, so that I can finally do a video on it. Says Gibsons are great, just not all of them. that I think there's a lot of truth to. You know, I think their quality is, you know, I think they're getting better. You know, it's getting better. They still got a long way to go, but you know, I think it's getting better. It is getting better. So, I would own one of the new Les Paul standards. Mikey Newman says, my Gibson Les Paul Access is amazing, but purists seem to hate on him. Yeah, you know, unless they, you know, you see him playing the Alec Lifeson model. But yeah, you're right. The Access is, I agree. Those are actually really, really good playing guitars. You know, and then really the only difference to them is, you know, the neck carve and, you know, and they got a Floyd on them. You know, that's really about the only things that set them apart. You know, I don't know why people are complaining about them, because people, you know, people have been modding their Les Pauls both, you know, with both of those, those features for years before Gibson finally just, you know, took the hint and came out with, you know, built one that way from the factory. I don't know why everybody complains about not everybody. I don't know why people complain about the Les Paul Access. A lot of things out there that, you know, from guitar players that just make me want to slap. You just want to fucking slap people for being so stupid. Sniff Matt up in the super chat says, here's a couple bucks for the Gibson fund. Please make sure you get the one you want. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much. Appreciate that very, very much. John Taylor says, my 70s Les Paul is junk, but it plays and sounds okay. It's a pancake, and the body is delaming. I'm not sure what that means, but yeah, the 70s, I don't know, man. You know, and again, there's good ones out there and there's bad ones out there. There's a lot of people that don't like what you're talking about with the pancake, body is, back in the 70s, one way that that Norland was having Gibson cut costs was when they were making Les Paul bodies, rather than, the one solid chunk of mahogany, they would take that same chunk of mahogany and cut it in half, and then slap two of them together, and then, slide a thin wafer of walnut in between the two. So when you look at it from the side, you can actually see it's a three-piece body stacked on top of each other, as opposed to one solid piece of mahogany. And, some purists, you're right, that drove them crazy, and there's other people out there that have owned those guitars. God, I remember, now I can't remember. Rich Ward is his name. He's a guitar player for the band Fozzy and also the band Stuck Mojo, if you're familiar with either of those bands. And, he's a great, great guitar player. I remember seeing he had one of his, 70s Les Pauls listed for sale that was the 70s. It was the pancake body with the maple wafer in the middle. And he hated to get rid of that thing. I think it was, fell on hard times or something. Anyway, so he hated to get rid of that thing because it was, but he loved the sound of it. And if you're not familiar with those two bands, I happen to be a fan of both bands, and I've always really, really liked his guitar tone. Really unique sounding. Ian Nunez says, I used to hate Gibson only because I couldn't afford one, and I grew up and got my credit built up. I love Gibson. That happens to a lot of people, I think. All of a sudden, they grow up and finally, suddenly they've got some money that they didn't have before. And, now they can buy the guitars that they had always admired when they were younger. Let's see. Hail Mary Recording says Epiphone is crushing it. I don't disagree, man. I got to give Gibson credit there. The Epiphone line right now is probably the best quality that it's been in decades. So if Gibson is doing one thing right at the moment, and to be clear, they are doing more than one thing right. But if they are doing one thing right, it's the Epiphone guitars. It's the Epiphone line, particularly the electric stuff. Those are really, really, really good guitars. Haas Coleman's here. Welcome, sir. Kind of catching the tail end of this thing. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to go. Pardon me. John Taylor says the stacked laminated body, it delaminates in the middle. If you love your guitar sound, you basically love the pickup sound. Okay, cool. Was not sure what you meant by that. Let's see. Sniff Maddox says they are, regarding Epiphones, are pretty hard to get a hold of here in the UK at the moment, as with a lot of other brands. I got some bad news for you guys, man. As far as, like inventory shortages and stuff, things being on back order. If you got something on back order that you're waiting on, this is going to get worse before it gets better. And the reason why, I think I may have talked about this last week. Every company in the world right now is over-ordering product, over-ordering compared to what they normally would, in order to make up for the losses that they incurred last year. So, what that translates into is, at least here in the U.S., and I assume other first world countries, like, countries in the U.K., for example, all the ports, namely like LA, for example. Infinite down in the bottoms is down in the super chat says smash the like button. Please smash the like button. I do appreciate that. If any help does go a long way, because that helps to boost the YouTube algorithm. It helps get my content out there to more people, which is what I want. Anyway, but what all that translates into is, with all of the basically everything's hitting the ports at the same time right now, and you're looking at companies are looking at a minimum of 60 days, probably longer, for a container to make it through customs at the port and be sent on its way. So I talked to one vendor here a couple of weeks ago about that, and he informed me of this. He's got they've currently got 4 containers worth of gear sitting at the port at LA, and it's just sitting there because customs hasn't gotten to it yet. And this is with all the customs agents working 12, 14-hour days. I mean, so it's not like they're sitting there doing nothing, just being lazy. I mean, they just haven't gotten to it yet. They've got that much stuff they've got to go through. So, his exact words were, "I'm waiting on 4 containers, so I've got to assume that Walmart and Best Buy are probably waiting on a couple thousand." Between all the different ports around the U.S. I think that's probably pretty accurate. So, it's especially with the computer chip shortage. In our industry, the AKM fire over in Korea or China, wherever that is, that didn't help any, because a lot of the parts that a lot of our companies buy from come from that factory. And if you're not aware, it burned to the ground about 6 months ago. Anyway, so the stuff with backorder products and being able to get a hold of stuff, like I said, it's going to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. So, we just got to be patient. It'll straighten itself out eventually, but it's not going to happen overnight. Oh, let's see. Zim's Guitars is here. What's up, dude? Fred Merrill says the Floyd and the Les Paul Access is cool. Seems to work better than Kahlers. 2 of my Gibsons have Kahlers that sustain well, but don't stay in tune. Great for heavy trem work. I actually prefer Kahlers myself. If somebody handed me an 80s Les Paul with a Kahler on it, I would be ecstatic. I've always wanted one of those. Part of me is just because it's an 80s Les Paul, which I think is cool as shit. But also just because I happen, I actually prefer Kahlers over Floyd Rose, but Floyds are far more common, and there's not very many guitars that actually come with a Kahler on it these days. So, and also, I'm not gonna buy a guitar buy a guitar just because it's got a Kahler on it. I mean, it needs to check off at least a few more boxes. Sniff Maddox says, "Do you think the blockage in that shipping canal has had an impact as well?" Not really. I mean, they got that's over and done with. I mean, it may have delayed things. It may have delayed a bit by a few days or a week or so. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that they got that. They got it straightened out, and they were able to get that boat turned around or pointed in the right direction. And get it the hell out of there. Why it, how it turned and got stuck in there to begin with, I don't know. But my understanding is that's been resolved. So it may have backed things up, with that particular channel, by about a week or so. But I don't think that's going to be the main impact, not by a long shot. Let's see. I don't mind 70s Gibson pancake Les Paul bodies, possibly because it ties in nicely with my love for pancakes. Yeah, fair enough. 2 of my Les Pauls are 70s, 74 and 78 customs. So far, they seem to be holding together okay, I hope. John Taylor says that's over 20 pounds of Les Pauls. Assuming they're 10-pounders, probably. Which a lot of Les Pauls from that era were 10-pound guitars. Definitely got to eat your Wheaties before you strap one of those on for a gig. They were not chambering them back then. All right, guys. Well, we're right at 2 hours, and I need to go get on with the rest of my day, the rest of my weekend. We are taking my mother-in-law out to dinner for her birthday this evening, so I promised Mrs. Jackson that I would be ready to go when she got home and all that stuff. So I need to go start taking care of that. Yeah, guys, thanks for hanging out with me. Those that took time to contribute to the channel, thank you very much for that as well. And yeah, adios. Have a great weekend, everybody.